Welcome. My name is Eduardo Samayoa from Grant Management Solutions. Right now we are presenting the third video in our instructional series on the dashboard. In this third video, we will learn how to input the management indicators information into the system. Our main menu in the dashboard will take us to the introductory information. In the introductory information, as we had mentioned before, the cells in blue take us to the correct place to enter the appropriate management information. The number of management indicators is 6. The first has to do with the state of the conditions precedent of the grant. As you may remember, the Global Fund has established certain conditions precedent that must be completed by the principal recipient prior to a disbursement. These established prerequisites are monitored through the dashboard. It will indicate which have been completed, which still need to be done, and are still under established time limit, and also those which have not been met by the established deadline. It is important that the country coordinating mechanism be familiar with this to establish and know the status of these conditions, since their status will determine the next disbursement to the country. There is a space to establish how many conditions precedent have been met and how many actions with deadlines have been finished. There are also cells for those actions that have not been finished but are still within the time limit allowed to them, and those that were not met and whose time has elapsed. The second indicator is the status of the key job positions planned by the principal recipient. The principal recipient plans in its proposal the number of positions that will be needed for the project. In this indicator, we see those management positions it plans to hire. How many have already been hired or covered? The system automatically tells us how many vacant positions there are. This is important to know because many of the projects of the Global Fund are not executed correctly due to lack of human resources, due to lack of contracting on the management level or coordinating level. The third indicator monitors how many sub-recipients the principal recipient has contracted for the development of the project. This space has 5 cells in which we input the number of sub-recipients that have been identified as potential implementers of the project. There is also a cell for the number of sub-recipients that have been evaluated to see if they meet the conditions to be implementers for the project. From potential implementers evaluated, how many were approved by the principal recipient or the country's coordinating mechanism? How many of these implementers have signed their contracts? And how many are receiving money from the principal recipients? The fourth indicator tells us the number of reports that have been finished and sent on time by the sub-recipients to the principal recipient. The principal recipient established deadlines for the sub-recipients to send the financial and programmatic reports to the principal recipient, who makes sure to integrate these and make its final report to be sent to the Global Fund. In this indicator, we have the number of sub-recipients who have sent the expected reports and how many have actually been received. Also, it allows us to identify how many implementing organizations, or in some countries sub-recipients, sent information to the sub-recipient. So we can monitor the reporting of the sub-recipients to the principal recipient and from sub-recipients to the sub-recipients. The M5 and M6 are 2 of the most important management indicators. The M5 includes the budget for purchasing health products and health equipment, medicines, and pharmaceuticals. This indicator is very important because in many countries, over 80% of the grant funds usually go to the purchasing of drugs. It is important to monitor how these purchases are made. The indicator M5 then lets us know what is the budget approved by the Global Fund. The data for the cumulative budget is extracted from our complete performance report or from the reports from the principal recipient. We also see here how much money the principal recipient has not yet disbursed, but already has reserved or has promised, and will likely disperse in the next period. Different countries have different names for this, but it is the money that is already in reserve and already earmarked for purchase orders or some kind of purchase. The third line refers to what the principal recipient has already spent in purchasing drugs, equipment, or in medical products. This is entered by period, the approved budget as well as the costs. The sixth indicator is also very important because it helps us to know the stock of drugs in a country and how much is being held in reserve in the individual country. It compares what exists to what amount we should have on reserve. This objective is to make a comparison to see if we are going to be out of stock for a period of time. Each country establishes the number of months for which it needs reserve stock. It is very important to visit the places where these products are stocked in order to get this indicator information. Review the cards where product stocks are registered, and also know the length of storage time for each product. It is also important because the process of buying these products can take a substantial amount of time, and all the antiretroviral or anti-malaria drugs require that there be a large safety supply of inventory so that patients who are in need of these treatments aren't left without their medications. The way to enter this information is by simple formulas that permit us to focus on 4 important products to identify by principal recipient, or the CCM. Not a long list, just 4 major products that the country considers most important due to cost or because there is a need in that particular country. These 4 products are submitted to a series of simple calculations. The first column indicates how many pills per patient per day are necessary, which has been established in the country, whether bottles, drinks, or pills. This column automatically multiplies that number of pills by 30 days to establish the minimum number the patient needs for a 30-day period. Then, we require the number of patients under treatment that exist in the country for that medication. Once the number is established, we automatically get a column that multiplies the number of patients by the number of pills that are required in the period. Then, we establish the actual inventory of pills in the country. Specifically, how many pills there are that don't have an expiration date in the next 3 months. That is what is established in this 5th column. The next one is the result of the division between the number of pills that are in the pharmacies divided by the amount of pills the patients need every month, and as a result, we get the inventory level expressed in months for the patients already in treatment. In this case, the reference is 29 months for TDF, 12 months for RTV, 11 months for AZT, plus 3TC, and 15 months for EFV. This column refers to the level of security expressed in months. The country establishes through the Ministry of Health how many months are required to have in stock. Finally, there's a column which is the difference between the actual levels of inventory and the safety stock level of inventory. With this, we can note that amounts appear where we have a lot of medicine still in stock and some in which in a 2-month period we'll be left with little and need to do a new requisition. Graphically, we can see this, just like in the financial part. In the first graph, we have highlighted in green those previous conditions that have already been met, and in yellow, those that are about to be completed. Same as with the actions that have expiration dates. In the second indicator, we can see a graph that shows how many people or how many positions have been filled and how many are still pending hiring. Of the subrecipients that have been identified, the third graph represents how many have been evaluated, how many have been approved, how many have been signed, and how many received funding. In graph number 4, we see the number of finalized reports received on time. In this case, we see that 26 reports were finalized and received on time and 2 that are pending. In this case, there are no subrecipients to be shown. These graphs in M5 present in the blue line the approved budget that was approved by the Global Fund, that is a budget that is approved annually. We can see in the yellow line how much the principal recipient has executed up to date, and in the blue line with little boxes, we can see what is the amount that has been already committed and which obviously in the next period will bring the expenses to a higher level depending on how the purchases are made. In the end, we can observe the difference between the actual stock and the security or backup stock. We can see that TDF has 17 months of inventory left, and that permits us to have a safety net that the medication will be available for those people on these treatments. In the case of the next 2 products, we can see that they are already in red, which means from this date to the next 12 months, we are going to run out of medication. Therefore, it's important to continue our program of purchasing and be sure that the next purchases will be made within the time limits. The last green box establishes a safety net of 3 months or 3.2 months, meaning we have more than 3 months of backup stock for this product and that we do not have any issues there. This has been how the management portion of the information is presented. Remember, each graph has a yellow box that allows for comments or observations or bottleneck problems that we may notice and we may identify with the principal recipient so that the CCM may come up with some ideas to help solve these issues. Thank you very much. I am Eduardo Samayoa, and we invite you to watch video number 4. You can always download the dashboard from the links that are displayed on the following screen.